money. They had to eat and stuff like that. And so in order to take care of themselves, they'll drive them to prostitution, which is why God, when he gives the law, he gives a lot of rights to women in the law and how men are supposed to handle their wives. They, if they were to leave them unjustly, probably they're supposed to give them certain things and things like that. And as I said before, actually the writ of divorce was for the benefit of the woman, not the man. But we'll get into that later on. And so here we have this thing which is in the law called the kinsman redeemer, where one person, if a widow, and for people, her, like in Ruth's case, Naomi was her mother-in-law. All of Naomi's sons died, so she couldn't marry another son like she was supposed to. And so instead of being free like she was supposed to, she decided again to follow Naomi. And there's this thing called a kinsman redeemer, so she could still be a part of the family. Someone from Naomi's family was now able to marry her. And so Boaz was older, an old man. Yeah, near kinsman redeemer. And Boaz was an old man. He was not a young man. He was an old man. And Boaz was trying to give Ruth to a younger man. He was trying to give Ruth to younger men. But because of Boaz's position, Naomi inspired Ruth to go after Boaz. She inspired Ruth to go after Boaz and gave her advice on how to entice him, right? He was wealthy. An old man, and he was wealthy. And she inspired Ruth to go after Boaz. So this whole idea of finding your Boaz is not a thing. It's not what you think, because if you really want to find your Boaz, you got to have a different type of culture. You have to have a different type of culture in order to find, quote unquote, your Boaz. Because it wasn't like Ruth was looking for Boaz. Ruth, again, was happily married. It's just that her husband died. It's just that her husband died. God took him. And the purpose of this whole situation was a look or a point to Christ, in Boaz being a shadow or a type of Christ, being the near kinsman redeemer. Because we as a people need a redeemer, someone to redeem us, to make us whole, to bring us back into completion. And so Boaz was a shadow of Christ to be this near kinsman redeemer. Ezra, Mike. She had a big plan.
And so the Redeemer, doesn't it reflect on how Christ brought the Gentiles in? We were brought in versus the Israelite or his chosen. He redeemed, he connected us, right?
Yes.
To become the ones that were not chosen, but still chosen, but in a fashion where, couldn't you say it's like
exactly.
Redeemer?
That's the shadow that we see, because Ruth was not of a Jew.
She's a Moabite, right?
Yeah, she was a Moabite. She was not a Jew. She was not of the Hebrew people. She was not a child of Abraham biologically, right? And so Ruth being taken in by Boaz, becoming a part of that Israelite family by him taking her in, is, again, as you just said, a picture of Christ taking in all those who are Gentiles. But the funny thing is this, and how you worded it, you said, they were not a part of the elect people, but then they were elected, right? Because just as Boaz had to elect Ruth and choose Ruth,